we're talking more about burnout than ever before. But are we actually doing anything meaningful about it? According to the World Health Organization, burnout is now officially recognized as an occupational phenomenon. A recent study by Gallup found that nearly 44% of employees globally report feeling stressed at work daily, one of the highest levels recorded. And in India, the numbers are even more concerning, with multiple reports indicating rising levels of disengagement, anxiety, and silent burnout across the workforce. If culture is improving, why are people still feeling this strain? That's what we're unpacking today on this episode of BW People HR Voices. Joining us for this conversation is a leader who has not only witnessed but actively shaped culture across diverse markets and business cycles. We're delighted to have Ms. Priyanka Anand, Vice President and Head of HR for Southeast Asia, Oceania, and India at Ericsson. With close to 2 decades of experience, Ms. Anand has led large-scale HR transformations across more than 10 countries. She's also recognized as one of the most influential women in HR 2026 by BW People, making her voice especially relevant as we rethink what culture really means today. So let's quickly get into the episode. Welcome, Ms. Anand. Thank you so much for joining us today for the new episode of BW People HR Voices.
Thank you so much, Savi. Pleasure to be here.
Well, congratulations first. You were also the winner of this year's Most Influential Women in HR by BW People. So congratulations. How do you feel?
Thank you. Feels great. It's always a privilege to be recognized for all the work you've been doing in this space for more than 3 decades. It's great and very timely, and I really appreciate the recognition.
Well, May, the month of May, it's the Mental Health Awareness Month, Ms. Anand, and it's very important and relevant in today's age and time to talk about this. Especially when we're seeing a lot of news around employee well-being and the employee experience and culture. Before we get into the most serious part of the conversation, one icebreaker question for you. If you had to describe the emotional state of today's workforce in one word, what would it be and why?
It's a mix of being anxious and resilient. Anxious because the world is changing almost on the go, and there's so many unknowns coming to the play at same point in time. And resilient because that's what you need to feel and be to be able to deal with this ever-changing landscape that's happening all around you.
Mm-hmm. When we talk about mental health awareness, the conversations often peaks in May and then it fades away slowly throughout the year. Now, how do you as a CHRO ensure that employee well-being and the conversations around mental health, they come into play as a structural change at the organization and not just a conversation for a month specifically?
So to me, I think it's quite evident that there's a heightened awareness about mental well-being and how do we invest in the overall program and upkeep. Lots of investments have been happening, and I guess Ericsson is no different. We do lots of things around creating awareness programs, creating employee assistance applications where people can reach out to talk about things that really matter to them. But to me, those programs are more hygiene. Mm-hmm. What's quite evident through lots of recent studies, and possibly I'll quote one from Deloitte, which clearly says that the whole mental stress and the challenge to well-being really comes into play because there is less of this workload pressure. It's more about cognitive stress that employees experience. So when organizations don't really create the right level of decision-making matrices, don't really lead by example, the mantra that you've got to be able to switch off when needed, and there's no expectation from the leaders to be available online anytime, anywhere, right, and deliver. And the fact that the whole digital topology becomes more regulated to enable a better work culture versus creating more mess or creating more complexity. Mm-hmm. When those things starts to get resolved, I think mental well-being comes into play. Right. So to me, it's more structural changes that need to be made, where organizations have the right processes, right culture, right commitment towards bringing well-being to play every single day, right, versus talking about this in the month of May through these programs and activities.
What about the metrics? How do you measure the employee well-being? We talk about happy workplaces, but is happiness the right metric, or do you think there should be a metric for psychological safety, for emotional honesty? What are you doing at Ericsson?
So happiness is very important, right? Of course, it's a feeling that we always want employees to exhibit, experience, and take back with themselves when they come to work or they go back from work. But to make it more systemic and measurable, it cannot be the only factor. Mm-hmm. And to me, I would still say what's very important is how do we start to measure psychological safety, Savi, because that's where the real change starts to happen. Mm-hmm. And psychological safety is not really about am I comfortable, Am I really happy to come to workplace? It's really about, am I being able to bring my full self to work? Am I feeling psychologically safe? Is this environment letting me speak up at the time when I feel it's important, even if I have a contrary view to what's being discussed in the room?
Right.
When those things happen, you start to see that, it translates into more measurable outcomes, which organizations can work on, enable, measure, and see the outcomes in terms of their longevity as an employee, their tenure, their loyalty to the organization, and how engaged they are.
Right.
So, all in all, happiness is more foundational, but what sits on top of it is psychological safety. And to me, the biggest outcome is really about how they become honest in calling out the red flags or their differing point of view in real time. Especially in businesses like ours, we manage mission critical networks. So if people don't speak real time, it can impact the entire connectivity of the world, right? So they have to be more real time and honest to bring out whatever they feel is bothering them or which could be fatal for the organization or for the network upkeep. And with that happening, psychological safety and honesty is what we focus most on and we measure as well.
Very interesting that you mentioned that, because I personally feel exit interviews are no more relevant. Employee engagement surveys throughout the year, quarterly, annually, they are very important to understand what the employees actually want. Now, what is something that you have in place in Ericsson for that? What are some of the challenges that you have personally seen, faced here in the company, and how have you overcome those?
Great question. So there are 3 questions in one question. First things first, employee engagement exit surveys are important, right? Because it gives you the real last mile feeling information when the employee decides to jump off the ship to join or leave your organization, right? But to me, it's more about looking at things in the rearview mirror. Because then it's only information that you can do to make things better futuristically, but you can't avoid the decision that has been taken. So to me, exit interviews really become the last mile. What's more important is having regular engagement surveys and conversations. And to me, we do have annual surveys. They're very short, they're very specific and targeted, so employees feel both the ownership but also the possibility of giving feedback real time. What's important is what do we do with the feedback that we receive. To me, surveys only become more meaningful or they hold value in an organization when employees trust it, believe in it, have confidence in it, right? So when we get the feedback from the surveys, then we start working on action planning in a very tangible manner. Again, it's owned by the leader. So one of the biggest shifts that we're trying to make is it's not going to be programmatic, it's owned by the leaders, and leaders are the one who have to drive the feedback into tangible actions, which could either mean we'll work on the feedback received and fix the feedback because we've got to change something about it, or we go back and manage expectations that we've received a feedback, but these are our limitations of not being able to change it. So these people understand that they've been heard, right? The last thing I'll definitely say about this is engagement surveys are just one part of how we engage with employees to hear their feedback and understand what they want and they don't want. But continuous dialogue, having real roundtables, conversations, speak up formats and forums, listening forums as well, giving people opportunities to say what they do not believe is going well with their own value system, all that put together creates a right level of ecosystem and ethos so that people always feel that they're heard. And like I said, they are psychologically safe to speak up when they feel something is not going in the same direction as their value system or the expectations from the professional world.
Very, very nicely put, and very, very happy to know what you're doing at Ericsson for the employees. Well, when we talk about burnout, especially at the mid-managerial level, there are several studies that show with AI making life easier, it's also increasing the rate of burnout because there's double the work that managers have to do today. What do you think about it? What are your views, and how can that be managed, especially for the mid-managerial level?
And Savi, I think that's a reality we are all living in, right? Because this whole digital acceleration and digital enabled work is really creating more complexities when it comes to creating boundaries between work and personal life, right? So it's quite clear that the burnout is evident. You see that 71% of Gen Zs today, who are 15% of our workforce, clearly feel that they are experiencing burnout almost 15 years ahead of their previous generations. So we are living in complex times, right? And the whole employee base is giving us a lot of regular feedback about the culture, which expects them to be, like I said, switched on all the time, talks about how decision making is far more complex. They have more responsibilities and less accountabilities. And lastly, it's quite evident that they don't have forums to be able to create AI as a complementing resource versus something they've got to continue to still learn and invest in. So as an organization, we are creating a huge amount of ecosystem where people can leverage AI to be able to offload work that can be done through a less human intervention and more through the automated ways of working or through AI. Once that happens and employees feel supported, that they will invest time doing things that will bring value through human interventions, they start to become part of the solution and adoption of AI. Then secondly, like I said, culturally, you've got to make sure that leaders walk the talk.
Right.
It's not okay to always brag about how I'm working 24/7, always accessible, and create an unsaid culture and expectation on people to do that themselves. So when leaders start to talk about how burnout is a problem and we want to solve it, and solve it along with partnering with the employees feel supported.
Correct.
And that's where they will be able to go the extra mile when needed and switch off when it's really needed for their own mental well-being or physical well-being, as we call it, right? And the third thing is creating enough forums and avenues for people to call it out. When I'm feeling that I have a burnout, I need better resources, I need time off, I need to be able to give in better technology and tools, or I need to move into another role that gives me a little bit of downtime. If they can speak those things and discuss those things with the leaders, and leaders are responsible to be able to solve those situations, eventually burnout will start to get resolved in ways that employees will deal with the peaks and the turfs in ways to balance their well-being and feel that they have the energy to go through in the longer term.
So for freshers especially, do you feel it's easy for them to speak out about burnout, or there is hesitation? Because it looks good on paper, but as an employee myself, I don't think I can in my office clearly say that, yeah, I'm burned out, I want to take a leave for a week and,
not easy.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's a journey.
Yeah.
We're building a culture where employees do feel comfortable and safe to say that they are experiencing burnout. But to your initial comment, Gen Z seem to be far more expressive. They definitely have the willingness to speak up. A lot of surveys that I'm reading right now clearly articulates that how Gen Z are more purposeful in what they want, how they want, and when they want. So just expecting them to work 24/7 without taking care of all those aspects of what makes them feel that they can really be their full selves at work wouldn't work, right? So as an organization, it's not easy, but we're trying to create a shift at the top level. How top leaders clearly make sure that they are embracing this mindset and amplifying those messages. At the middle level, how do we make sure that leaders are really the ones who are making the difference appear and visible and experiential to the employees at large, right? But thirdly, when it comes to employees, it's important for them to ask for what resources and help and support do they need.
Right.
So we create that open dialogue format and forums where people feel empowered. They also feel that there's a cultural acceptance of when they want to say that this is a challenge or this is where they need help and this is where they need to be supported. When this all comes together as an enterprise-wide priority, Savi, then you start seeing that things are moving.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it starts to stay on the drawing boards and a lot of flip charts and presentations, but the real-time experiences won't really replicate or reflect that. And I guess because of our investment in a overall ecosystem, we're trying to see those things still coming to life every now and then.
Yeah.
And the biggest outcome is, are we retaining our top talent across multiple generations? And the data shows a very promising number for us because we are in one of the industry best retention numbers, and we lose very few people because both culturally we are investing in this, and secondly, like I said, we're making this happen in a manner where it's available and accessible to everyone.
So you're moving the needle.
We're trying to move the needle, yes, across the levels and layers.
Ericsson also works across geographies. Now, every company today, they claim to have a very, very strong culture. But at some point, working across geographies, it becomes difficult to uphold that strong culture. It gets fragmented, it gets diluted. As a CHRO, what are you doing to, maintain that strong culture across geographies?
So I have to go a bit down my memory lane, Savi. So one thing that I would very proudly say is Ericsson is probably one of those few organizations that have stood the test of time across 150 plus years. And definitely it's our people and our technology that makes it happen. But the third aspect that we are very proud of is our culture. And that stayed with us for 150 years. And we are very proud about the culture that we have. We nurture it, we safeguard it in ways that we don't want the culture to be different for different parts of the world. We are present in 180 plus countries and 100,000 employees. So it's a complex task. That said, I'm least concerned about the culture being replicated in a uniform manner. I'm more interested in how we keep our common core intact, but make sure that there are cultural adaptations.
Right.
So every country has different cultural expectations, preferences, needs. Like I said, different generations have different needs. How do we become agile to be able to adapt to the changing needs of different cultures, different generations, different set of people, because they're coming from a different background? And that is what we are doing beautifully. We're creating a huge amount of cultural awareness through calling out our common core in a very simplistic way, what our culture is, and then we continue to tell leaders that they are fully empowered and accountable to bring it to life every single day.
Right. You also spoke about multi-generational workforce. Today, we have 4 generations working. By the next decade, we'll have 5 generations working, and all of them have different expectations. What are some expectations that you see today from different generations, and how are you managing that?
So this question is very close to my heart. I'll tell you why. Because not just a professional point of view that I have on this. Personally, I'm doing my PhD in this topic, antecedents of employee engagement for Gen Z. So I'm really working and studying this whole multi-generational workforce. And like you said, we are one of the most fortunate as HR to be able to see all the 4 generations come to work, their uniqueness, their preferences, and their expectations. And to me, least of my challenge, I would say, is about how do we embrace them and bring to work and leverage them in a full capacity. The bigger challenge we have is we are not doing enough we are not doing enough in the professional world to bring the value of each of them on the table for people to see. So the value of a Gen Z working with a Gen X or a baby boomer is really about getting years of experience about how they've seen technology evolve. So for example, in our case, 2G to 5G happened, the whole evolution in the telecom space happened in less than a decade, right?
Yeah.
So somebody who's worked on 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G understands the complexity of each of the generation of the radio systems, how they come to play. And likewise, Gen Z comes with a huge amount of digital native approach, right? They're very quick at adopting technologies, leveraging AI, like you said, bringing ways of doing things with less manual interventions. So when these cohorts come together, they can clearly create a very innovative, magical outcomes for organizations. So as an organization, how do we create forums, culture, environments where we can get the best of these coming together? Also create a huge amount of awareness, because when we appreciate differences, that's when we can come together and understand that these are not differences, these are individual strengths. Then when they come together, combats the biggest challenges and delivers the biggest innovation outcomes.
Very well put. I'll now address the elephant in the room. Now
Sure.
there is the HR department here, and there is the sales, the finance department here. Now when we talk about profits and the business side of it, the well-being initiatives, they usually take a back seat. How do you ensure that the mental health initiatives, they do not deteriorate in such high pressure environments where there's a pressure on building profits and the business part, and the focus goes away from well-being?
It's a complex question and a complex issue to resolve, right? And I guess this has to be addressed at the fundamental core level and has to be synced with the tone at the top, Savi. So the way I would say it is, at any given point in time, well-being and business productivity or performance outcomes should not be trade-offs, right? So you do not achieve performance outcomes by compromising on mental well-being in times of high pressure. Has been a bit of our very clear strategy, but expectations from the leaders. So first thing, this has to be owned by the leaders. Leaders have to be able to plan for moments when there will be high pressure environments or tasks that has to be delivered because of it's a crunch timeline or technology dependency, whatever it is, right? Leaders have to know there will be things that will always be exigencies or plan B needs to be put in place. At that time, the easy choice is to compromise on well-being, and that should never be the case, is our expectation from the leaders. And they're measured for their effectiveness and success on how do they bring that balance together. So when we see times of high pressure, then the solutions have to be not just come from the individuals and the employees. How do we create and mobilize a lot of resources to build that right level of support for the people who are dealing with high pressure? And then there are moments that, in spite of the best of your intent, you will still need to live through the high pressure environment. If that happens, then you need to know how will you get, post that session, how do we get people to get that refresh time, or that get out and then create a little bit of a downtime for those people. That's important, right? So we kind of balance them through their journeys. So the one thing I would definitely say is, how do leaders map moments that matter during high pressure environments to even personal situations when I'm going through mental stress, while there's a huge amount of commitment at work, like you said, Savi. So then managers and leaders have to come to the forefront and create that right level of support system, and be the leader who's mediating between their situations and the expected outcomes. And when employees feel that support comes, they will be able to go the extra mile and also speak when they need support. The last thing I'll definitely say is, in this whole equation, we are very clear with the leaders. If we receive a lot of appreciation from the customers and we get the best financial results, but we've lost the people in the journey, and the best of the people are leaving us because either the leaders couldn't create the right level of support, or the stress wasn't managed, or their well-being was getting impacted, then the outcomes will not be important. It's not just what you achieve, how you achieve and how you take people along with you on the journey is equally important. And that expectation makes it possible that leaders always know that they've got to secure the outcomes by following what is expected from them, which is the how part. That employees' well-being is not getting compromised, and they're supporting them through and through.
Absolutely, I agree with you. What about the rewards and recognition part? You know, today recognition and rewards is not just limited to money, especially for Gen Z. They want purpose. Now at Ericsson, what are you doing to, you know, what's the strategy behind the rewards and recognition for different generations?
Okay, so to me, I guess we don't differentiate this on generations, because a lot of studies that I've been, following, lots of research we've done, like I said, we've seen this evolving over multiple decades now. Rewards are important, and that's extrinsic, right? How well you pay me, how you reward me. We have a reward platform. We have different culture of people using that platform to reward people for their achievements, for things that they have done out of the way. And there's multiple ways of rewarding people, right? That we're pretty proactive on. To me, that's hygiene. That's foundational. Recognition is where it goes the extra mile, where you see the multiplier, because recognition and getting that right for any organization would mean you'll secure loyalty, you'll secure engagements, which is 17 times more than a normal employee. So a lot of studies show that if we have a strong appreciation culture in an organization, an employee will be 17 times more loyal to stay with the organization than an organization which does not have a recognition culture, right? And to us, we try and look at the intrinsic factors of recognizing employees a lot more. Like I said, it's not an HR metric, and it's not that we're driving, just creating an ecosystem and how leaders can leverage it, but how can leaders clearly exhibit that in everyday times, right? Because another study that I was reading also indicates weekly recognition leads to 2.6 times more productivity of an employee versus an environment where no recognition happens. So all in all, I would say reward is hygiene, is foundational. Recognition is a culture that leaders have to drive, and they are the ones who will make it happen, because a lot of studies also show people will not leave organizations because you don't pay them well or because you don't reward them well, but they will leave because they're not recognized for the work that they're doing. When they feel recognized, and that's instant gratification in so many ways, because the manager tells you, I watched you and you did this and you did this really well, you start to see there's a huge amount of positive outcomes, both in productivity as well as their engagement and their motivation of being with the organization. And then, are we differentiating this for the different generations? The answer is yes, we are definitely being more purposeful, and we want to create and personalize how we're recognizing our employees. But like I said, there will always be us that will keep traversing different generations. But our commitment to make it happen and leaders owning it, their ownership, is where we start to drive the big difference and moving the needle.
Well, if you could redesign one fundamental aspect of how organizations treat people at work today, what would it be?
Treat people at work today. I guess people are valuing what we want from our employees as much as what do our employees want from us, right? To me, it's a little bit like a win-win deal. It's nowhere around employees should do what I need as an organization for me. It's really also about what will I as an organization do to ensure that the employees feel equally supported and enabled to fulfill their ambitions, their personal aspirations, their goals. And when the deal is a win-win, I do whatever I can for the organization does whatever I need as an employee. There's a long-term commitment towards making the organizations successful. And that's when you create a legacy of 150 years of existence like Ericsson does.
Lovely. Thank you for sharing everything that you did about the mental health conversation. But on a very separate note, I want to ask you a closing question. And that's my personal favorite question. I ask this to every CHRO. We strongly believe that CHROs are the future CEOs. What do you think about that? Because people are the essence of any organization, and who better to understand that than CHROs? And second part of the question is, what does a future HR office look like to you?
So Savi, I think again, multiple questions into one. So I'll try and probably summarize my high level takeaway. Clearly, HR, as long as it stays a support function, will never bring the value to the business that's needed from our function, the HR function. So how HR can become a real hand-in-glove partner for the business to grow and future-proof itself and keep, the talent that we need along with us on the journey will make a huge difference. So to me, a future CHRO or a CEO in the make from the HR organization will only happen when we start to live, breathe, and dream about business success and outcomes. And to make that happen, people becomes the enabler. If that equation gets right, there is no way those organizations cannot survive 150 years and grow exponentially and create the innovation that the industry needs to thrive in times to come.
What's your end goal professionally? How would you want people to remember you?
To have coined people practices that have grown organizations multifold in an exponential manner, and they've created the top spot in the industry wherever that company was. So Ericsson becomes the #1 telecom conglomerate in the industry or in the whole world.
Lovely. We'll now move on to the much fun part of the conversation, which is the rapid fire round.
Okay, then I can relax a bit.
Well, I just want one-word answers.
Okay.
And no options.
Okay. Just spot on and one word. Okay.
One workplace trend you think is overrated.
Work-life balance.
Okay. One HR practice that should be completely scrapped.
Forced rankings.
Remote work, productivity booster or culture killer?
Productivity booster.
Burnout, is it an individual problem or organizational failure?
Organizational failure.
One word to describe Gen Z.
Purposeful.
I was hoping for that. One leadership trait that matters most in 2026.
Adaptability.
Okay. Rewards or recognition, which matters more?
I said that. Recognition.
Okay. Work-life balance or work-life integration?
No to both. I will create a third option. Work-life boundaries.
One thing leaders say but don't really practice.
Recognition.
Okay. Your personal non-negotiable for a healthy workplace.
Work-life boundaries.
Well, we end this conversation here. Thank you so much, Ms. Anand, for joining us today.
Thanks,
and our viewers, I'm most definitely sure they're going to enjoy this conversation, especially in the month of May, where the focus is going to be mental health. So thank you once again, and congratulations on the win as the most influential women in HR again. Thank you.
Thank you, Savi. Pleasure to be here.